Hey guys, in this book review I'm going to be reviewing the Physick book of Deliverance Dane by Catherine Howe and The Heretic's Daughter by Kathleen Kent. So before I get into my review on each of these books separately, the reason I am combining both of these books is because they both talk about the Salem witchcraft trials of 1692. And another interesting fact about these two books, Catherine Howe and Kathleen Kent are both distant relatives of some of the women who were hanged during the witchcraft trials. I believe Catherine Howe, she says that she was related to Elizabeth Howe, and then Kathleen Kent says she was related to Martha Carrier. And that's just so fascinating. How do you track something down like that? Jeez. Like I said, both of these books have something to do with the Salem witchcraft trials. I have always had a fascination with the Salem witchcraft trials. Just such a dark time in American history. Just how horrible it was. Jeez. I think I developed my first interest in the Salem witchcraft trials through Arthur Miller's The Crucible. I believe I read The Crucible for the first time in 10th grade. I think what attracted me to the whole idea of the Salem trials, it was just mostly this notion of how could people turn against their neighbors like that, you know? I was just so flabbergasted that, you know, neighbor against neighbor, family against family, you know, and a lot of times all it was just about jealousy, you know, jealousy and land or money or something stupid like that, you know? It was never having to do with witches in real life, but yet people used their superstition and their fear of the devil in order to accuse these people, you know, even though deep down it had nothing to do with superstition or the devil, just had to do with their own petty jealousies. So yeah, that finally leads me into my book reviews. The first book I'm going to talk about is the Physick book of Deliverance Dane by Catherine Howe. This book actually has some dual narratives going on. The majority of the book takes place in Massachusetts in 1991, and then scattered throughout the book is little flashbacks to things that happen in the late 1600s and then even through the 1700s. And this book follows a young woman named Connie in 1991, and she has been sent by her mother to deal with her grandmother's house. Her grandmother's house is this really tiny and old, decrepit building, and one day Connie is kind of going through some junk and she comes across this key, and wrapped around the key is this little paper that says Deliverance Dane. So this sends Connie into this whole big quest. She's trying to learn more about Deliverance Dane and Deliverance's connection to the Salem witchcraft trials of 1692. But while Connie is trying to hunt down all these various different clues and puzzle pieces, her own life is put in danger. This novel is about generations of women and the after effects of the Salem witchcraft trials and how it all connects to Connie in the end. The Physick book of Deliverance Dane, wow, a really incredible read, extremely well written, beautiful descriptions of everything. If you can't tell from the synopsis, this book is kind of a mystery thriller sort of book, kind of like a treasure hunt book where the protagonist has to go on this little mini mission and collect various different clues and puzzle pieces in order to get the larger scope of what's going on. And like I also said, the book It takes place primarily in 1991 with the protagonist Connie, and then little bits of historical fiction scattered in. Some of it taking place before the Salem trials, some of it taking place during the trials, and then a good little bit of it taking place after the trials, following some of the generations of women who suffer from the trials. And in my opinion, even though I did like the segments with Connie, I actually think the historical fiction bits were some of the best and better written. I think the one thing that this book suffers from is predictability. This is what you need to know about books that have dual narratives. You know, a book that has both a modern setting and a historical setting. Books like that, they tend to follow for the most part the same formula. And so I found myself within the first couple pages, you guys, within the first couple pages, I was able to predict the ending, and sure enough, I was correct. But still, like I always say, whenever a book is predictable like this, it still doesn't entirely ruin my feelings on it at all, because I'm still being entertained, and I'm still finding some sort of enjoyment, and yeah, finding out whether or not I am correct in my assumptions. So yeah, even though this book is incredibly predictable, I still found myself thoroughly entertained by the end. This book also has some really good characters. The only negative is that none of these characters are given a lot of depth or character development. In some ways they're a little bit flat, but then also there's still something of interest about them. And you'll either like the characters or you won't. I mean, it just depends on you as the reader, how much character growth and development do you want in your characters. So yeah, if you're someone who wants a lot of character growth, you may find yourself a little frustrated with characters like Connie. But yeah, if you're someone who wants to experience this book just for the story itself, then yeah, you'll probably just enjoy that. You'll enjoy the story more than the actual characters. And like I said in my synopsis of this book, it's about generations of women, and I think that's what I found the most intriguing about this book. You know, something I've never thought about. You know, a lot of times when I think about the Salem witchcraft trials, I just think about the trials themselves and then when they finally end. I never think about after the trials, you know, the things that some of the survivors or the family members of those who were killed, you know, what did they have to go through afterwards? And I like that this novel explored that, the after effects of the trials and what that did to the women who did survive, and then the family members of those who were killed. Because the trials put a stigma on people, which was a shame, and people kind of crumbled, you know, just not financially stable at all afterwards. And a big part of this book, it's just about family, you know, it's about family, it's about love, it's about forgiveness. So yeah, the parts of the book that I enjoyed the most. So yeah, I recommend the Physick book of Deliverance Dane. If you're looking for something that is a bit of a mystery sort of book, a book that deals with putting the puzzle pieces and clues together, but yet it doesn't have a lot of historical fiction to it. So then moving on over into The Heretic's Daughter by Kathleen Kent. This book takes place entirely in a historical setting right before the trials and during the trials. And this book follows 9-year-old Sarah Carrier as her family is moving from one village and going to another village. Massachusetts is already gripped by superstitious fear, and Sarah and her family find themselves wrapped up into the whole Salem witchcraft trials of 1692. This is a mother-daughter story between Sarah and her mother, Martha Carrier. And in order to protect her daughter, Martha asked her daughter to do the most unthinkable of acts, even if it means her own death. So what you need to know about this book, it starts about 2 years before the actual Salem witchcraft trials actually get going, and it's mostly just a book telling Sarah's story, talking about early America, and also just a big lead up to how the trials even happened. Like I said, this book, it's talking about early America, setting up the mood of this world, you know, the fact that people had to deal with native inhabitants, you know, the fear there, the constant struggle for survival in this world, jealousy among neighbors, and superstitious fear of the devil, you know, combine all of those elements, and that's what starts the Salem trials. So yeah, I mean, as far as the Salem trials themselves go in this book, those don't even happen until pretty much near the end, and it's not even the large bulk of this novel. The large bulk of this novel is talking about Sarah and her family, and just developing the mood of the time period and the fears and struggles that early Americans had to face. But once you do get to the trials, man, Kathleen Kent does an amazing job really describing the deplorable conditions that these men and women had to suffer. And it can be pretty heartbreaking. I'm not gonna lie, you guys. The end of this book can be pretty heartbreaking when you see the conditions that these people are living in. The jail cells being so cramped, people being so nasty, people starving. So yeah, Kathleen Kent does a great job in regards to her research. She does a great job of setting up the mood of the time period. She does a great job of setting up the fear and the paranoia, and also doing a terrific job of showcasing that utter fear that the accused felt. I think the one downside of this novel, if I had to give it one negative, this is a pretty dark and depressing book, you guys. I mean, it never lets up. There is never a moment of levity. There's never a moment of joy. It's just constantly dark, 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 and it just never lets up, and it just continues from start to finish. So yeah, this book, it can be pretty heavy. If you're wanting to read a light, fluffy book, this is not the book for you. You definitely need to probably be in the mood to read this book, I'd say. But yeah, the big bulk of this story, it's just a big mother-daughter story. The mother and daughter not understanding each other, and yeah, the two of them willing to sacrifice themselves for the other. So yeah, that's it for my review on the Physick book of Deliverance Dane and The Heretic's Daughter. Both deal with the Salem witchcraft trials, but this one, like I said, half and half with a modern and historical setting, and then this one entirely in Salem, Massachusetts. So yeah, it's up to you which one you'd prefer. If I had to recommend a book, I mean, even though I'd recommend both, I think I'd recommend The Heretic's Daughter more than this one, perhaps, if you only had the option to choose one or the other. But yeah, both of these great reads, very easy to read, great pacing, beautifully written from both of these ladies. So in the comments below, have you guys read either of these books? Do you want to? And do you have any other recommendations for the Salem witchcraft trials? Just let me know down below. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.